This is a really important part of the process in order to get right, because if you get this right, everything else becomes so much easier. Now, let's actually walk through the ICO process one step at a time and give you the more tips and tricks of how you can be running this manually yourself. Step 1 on scraping qualified leads. This is a really important part of the process in order to get right, because if you get this right, everything else becomes so much easier. In fact, what I have on screen right here is the 5 ingredients in the order of importance for a successful cold outreach campaign. And the very, very first thing you need above anything else is the ideal client profile. You need the right audience for your campaign. If you have a hungry audience that wants what you have, then everything else in business just becomes so much easier. What will make that the right audience for you? That would be your offer. And this is something really important. Having cold outreach done with AI will give you significantly more results, and it can give you those results practically automated, but it won't be able to generate results if you have a bad product. If you're contacting much more people and have way more traffic, but nobody actually wants what you have, well, then your results are still going to be zero. You need to have the right product market fit before you can really unlock the power of a tool like ICO. If you have those two fundamentals right, then the sky is the limit. To walk through the other ingredients of a good cold outreach campaign, you also need the right deliverability. Basically, this means that you have the right way of contacting them and you can contact them reliably at scale. Once you have all of that, those fundamentals are done, then it's about having the right copy, having the right AI empowered outreach that gets their attention, that hooks them in. And after that, it's about right inbox management. What is inbox management? It's basically just sales. It's basically just walking them through your sales funnel and making sure the people who have expressed interest because you have the right product, because of the right audience, because you wrote the right outreach message, they've expressed interest, it's then guiding them through to actual selling. So we're going to be focusing on the right audience, as that is the first and most critical step of your cold outreach success. So for this, I'm actually going to be sharing screen and walking you through some of the filters that we use when we are running a campaign.
So what I have here is a example filter of a LinkedIn search that we actually did for one of our campaigns. And I think that this will be a really good walkthrough of some of the filters that really matter the most for a good LinkedIn search. Now, frankly, a lot of these searches are not things that you need to worry about. A lot of these filters here are filters for items and people types that are maybe important if you are doing networking or doing research on a particularly large account. But for getting a lead list that you're going to be using for a cold outreach campaign, they're just not important. So what are the things that matter? What I've done here is I have put a pin on every one of these filters I think are most important and that we use very commonly inside of our campaigns. We might be doing a fuller breakdown of LinkedIn Sales Navigator search filters later, so subscribe to be catching that when it comes out. But this will be a good speed run through the most important filters for your LinkedIn. So first, company headcount. This is really important because a lot of your campaigns are going to be defined by the size of the company you want to be going after. Company headcount is most commonly used to be isolating either if you have a ICP that is defined by being a solopreneur or a single coach, or a small business owner, or you might be using company headcount as a proxy for revenue. So if you want to be going after larger companies that have a large amount of revenue, you might be targeting companies that have more than 50 employees, more than 200 employees, and this is really helpful for that. The other filter I want to be talking about is current job title. And the way that I use current job title most often is I use it to double down on a keyword. So the keyword up here, if I type in speaker and coach, importantly, the word speaker and coach can appear anywhere inside of one of these people's information. So for instance, if I open this up here and do a search for speaker, you can see here the word speaker shows up inside the headline versus the word coach is also in the headline, but it's also underneath their current role. So when you type in something into the keyword section, then it can show up anywhere inside the LinkedIn profile. Now you'll notice here I'm using something called a Boolean operator. There are, I believe, 3 major Boolean operators that you're going to be using in your searches. You can do and, or, and not. So the way it works is that if you do and, obviously the 2 keywords, speaker and coach, both have to appear inside of a LinkedIn profile. If you do or, then it could be either one or both. And if you do not, then you're essentially saying not coach. So you might do like speaker and not coach to make this useful. Now, I will say that if you're using sometimes complex searches where you might want to do like speaker and coach or consultant, this is something you want to be a little bit careful about, because I have seen my own experience that sometimes LinkedIn doesn't do these things very correctly, but sometimes it deals with it no problem. So long as you are checking the result and double checking them, you shouldn't be having too many issues. All of these you can find out more about if you search LinkedIn Boolean search, and there's plenty of tutorials out there talking about the logic of LinkedIn searches. Let's talk about the next filter here. Sometimes we'll use past job title as well, but I like current job title the most, as it forces these keywords to appear underneath the current roles that they are currently taking. Do note that the way that all of these filters work, if you add one in here, like say author, they have include and exclude, so you can add basically negative keywords as well as positive keywords. And importantly, they automatically use an or statement. So here it's really saying speaker or coach, while here, if you remember, it is speaker and coach. So we wanted both keywords somewhere in their profile, but we wanted one or the other to show up beneath their current job role. Seniority level, there are different levels here that you can be targeting depending on what you're going after. Profile language, this is very useful sometimes if you are going after expats inside of a particular country. So if you want to be targeting potentially English speakers in other countries, or looking for immigrants or expats inside of English-speaking countries, this is the filter for you. And just kind of jumping around here, actually, because I skipped a couple. Years in current company and years in current position, this is definitely something that I think is overlooked a lot. We use this in order to be making sure we're targeting people that are a little more established. So for instance, we're not using it in this particular search, but there's another search that we do where we are looking for established business owners that might be interested in selling their companies. And for that, we crank this up to 10 plus years, as typically it's after 10 years that these business owners are interested in potentially selling their business. So there's a lot of interesting implications of years in current company and years in current position. Note on years in current company and current position. So you can see here, I just jumped over to my own LinkedIn profile to show this. So current position is what is right here, while current company is the company that position exists under. So you can see here, I had multiple positions inside of the company Belivnet Incorporated. So that is what those are referring to. Overall, we definitely use company a lot more than we use position, but depends on your search. Geography, this is a really important thing to be aware of. If you're using a tool like Phantom Buster or Golden Leads in order to scrape these results, you can only scrape a limited number of results. That limit for Sales Navigator searches is 2.5 thousand, while the limit if you're just using LinkedIn by itself without Sales Navigator is 1,000. So you can see here we have 18,000 results. How the heck are we supposed to narrow it down to a smaller list? Because we need to basically chunk this down and get multiple URLs to add up to the full size. Let's say I want to contact all 18,000 of these people, but 18,000 is too big. I would first just hit that biggest country. And let's say we actually go even more specific. So we want to target all of the USA. I would make 50 different searches for each one of the 50 states inside of the USA in order to get that full size. So here, even the biggest state, California, is less than 2.5K. So by doing 50 different searches, and this is something you can do pretty easily inside of a spreadsheet, just add in all 50 searches and then just change them one at a time. You can make sure that you are hitting your entire list by breaking the geography down. Really important for scraping leads. Let's pretend though, even at the state level, we're still above. Let's pretend that our limit is like 1,000, for instance. One thing you can do is you can make 2 different searches instead of just doing California, United States. Let's say you can just do Los Angeles. This could be your first search. And then you could break down the next one, or let's say Los Angeles and San Francisco. And then you could do another search where these then become exclusionary. You do California. And you'll see here you get the 1,000 minus Los Angeles and San Francisco. So this is a way that you can be making sure that you're chunking down a very, very big search result into a smaller constituency while still holistically tackling the entire list. really effective way. For this particular example, we added in all the countries that we wanted to be targeting just to see the total size of the list. But if we're actually putting this into a spreadsheet and scraping these leads using a tool like Phantom Buster or Golden Leads, then using geography is how we would break that search down. All right, so that's it for geography. There are still a few other filters that we use very commonly, but I think the one that I just want to close out on that we find very useful is groups. And if you're interested in finding out more about some of these other filters and want to know some of our other tips and tricks, then once again, just hit the subscribe button below and we might be doing another video like this. But let's talk about groups. So groups is very, very effective sometimes. We don't use it too much when we correspond this with a lot of other filters. In other words, if we're doing a group-based filter, then we would typically not be doing so many other filters on top of it. But there are a lot of LinkedIn groups out there that have tens of thousands of users. And if you join those groups and then do a simple search on, say, seniority level and let's say job title, you can be filtering, for instance, one campaign that we plan to be doing is targeting chiefs of marketing that are subscribed to the same thought leaders as we are, as that's much easier to start up the conversation. So targeting groups where we know that they orbit certain thought leaders, but targeting people who have a specific company size is a campaign that right now we're entertaining to be doing. And that's possible with large groups. So there are lots of groups out there that you can look into. Obviously, this doesn't overlap naturally with the rest of our filters here, but there are fantastic groups out there you can join and use for this purpose.
This is just the beginning. The next step, it's time to enrich the leads and get those great validated email addresses. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in and walking through the first step with me. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next steps to mastering AI-powered cold outreach with ICO.
AI is a massive passion of mine, building pretty much our entire portfolio of companies on the back of it. And I had actually done a lot of cold outreach before ChatGPT, before a lot of these tools came out of the market. And the problem was I loved the designing side of it, like the architecting the system, but I hated treating people like machines. I hated like having to